Alright, chat, that was bullshit. I'm restarting. I don't care. That was the most fuck ass race of all time. We're no. No. Those guys were trying to fuck on me. It's the one time I'm ever gonna do something like this. Truly, that was bullshit. Okay. We need to look at that replay. Oh my god. What was that? And then I get blown up and I fall. Insane. Almost stayed on too. Alright.
gave them a taste of their own medicine, literally. 5 years later, they're awkwardly avoiding my dessert table at a wedding. My crush and my best friend forced my hand. I'm not responsible for what happened to them. In 10th grade, I thought things were finally turning around for me because my crush Garrett stood in the middle of the cafeteria holding a red velvet cupcake and asked me to homecoming. I was the happiest girl in the world. But right after I accepted his proposal, he handed Olivia, my best friend since 3rd grade, a small bouquet of flowers and said he just didn't want her to feel left out. I told myself he was just being kind, but the way they looked at each other a second too long made something twist in my chest. Over the next few days, Olivia and I went dress shopping together. She helped curl my hair the afternoon of homecoming and told me I looked perfect, but something in her eyes felt like pity more than admiration. At the park for pictures, Garrett gave me a forced smile before tossing his arm around Olivia and saying she should pose with him just for laughs, and then kept her there for every other photo while I stood off to the side like their unpaid photographer. He spun her around like they were auditioning for a romance movie and kept saying she was a natural. In the car on the way to the dance, they sat pressed together in the back seat while I drove alone in silence, only glancing back once to see their fingers tangled and Olivia resting her head on his shoulder like she had always belonged there. When Garrett caught me looking through the rearview mirror, he snapped at me to keep my eyes on the road like I was their chauffeur. Once we arrived, they walked into the gym without waiting for me and laughed at an inside joke. I followed after, already drowning. At the dance, I stood by the wall holding a flimsy plastic cup while they danced together, ignoring me like I had never been invited. Every time I tried to approach, they moved further away until the music slowed and I finally caught them kissing behind the bleachers. In that moment, something inside me changed into disgust, so complete it felt holy. For weeks, I said nothing, smiled through it all, and acted like I had been fine with just being their third wheel. But when Valentine's Day came around and our culinary teacher announced we'd be making chocolates for class gifts, it felt like fate handed me a knife and told me where to aim. I spent days in my kitchen at home under the pretense of testing recipes, but each batch I made for Garrett and Olivia was a calculated weapon. I melted dark chocolate and stirred in enough overproof rum to cling to the roof of their mouth. I crushed laxatives until they turned to powder, measuring the exact dose that would explode in their stomachs 20 minutes after ingestion. I added a touch of ghost peppers into the filling. I tempered the chocolate to a glossy sheen and filled gold wrappers with hearts that looked hand-drawn with care. At the end of culinary class, we headed over to our algebra class for an exam. I handed the treats out casually, mentioning that chocolate stimulates the brain and that mine were extra strong. I then gave Olivia and Garrett my special recipe, saying that friends get special treatment. Everyone ate the chocolates and cleared their desks to take the exam. 15 minutes in, I watched him shift in his seat, legs tightening, forehead covered with sweat. Olivia blinked rapidly, her jaw tightening as she dropped her pencil and pressed her hand to her abdomen. When they both raised their hands and begged to be excused, the teacher, known for never allowing interruptions during tests, told them to sit back down and focus. Garrett gripped the desk, while Olivia rocked in her seat, blinking back tears. Just when the room began to quiet again, a deep, watery gurgle echoed through the silence. Olivia let out a panicked gasp and then bent over as she vomited onto the floor beside her backpack. It came out in thick ropes that went all over the carpeted floor. Chunks of half-digested chocolate and bile flew into the air. Garrett made a strangled noise and stayed seated, but we all smelled the crap coming from his pants. The smell hit like a slap. It was sharp and acidic with the unmistakable sting of alcohol and rot. Students began covering their mouths, gagging, pushing their chairs back in horror. One girl bolted out of the room and threw up in the hallway. Another screamed after seeing what was causing the odor. Garrett's seat was covered and dripping with semi-solid brown excrement that mixed in with Olivia's vomit, seeping into the carpet and dripping onto the floor in a sickening, sticky stream. The teacher rushed over only to recoil immediately when he got close enough to inhale the alcohol on their breath. Suddenly, it wasn't just a medical emergency, it was a disciplinary one. The school launched an investigation, dragging them both to the office after paramedics confirmed they had alcohol in their systems. Nothing else turned up. No one else who ate my chocolates got sick, and the extra samples I had left were clean. Garrett and Olivia were suspended indefinitely, and their parents pulled them from school in disgrace. I thought I had won. It sure felt that way too. Until a month later when I was walking home, and I saw them standing a few blocks away from my house, clearly waiting for me. My stomach dropped, but I kept walking. Running would make me look guilty. As I got closer, Garrett stepped forward with his hands up like he was surrendering. He said they just wanted to talk, said they were sorry about homecoming and everything after. Olivia nodded along, her eyes red like she'd been crying. I didn't trust them, but I also didn't want to make a scene in the middle of the street. Mrs. Chen was watering her garden and definitely watching us, so I stopped and listened. They apologized for using me, said they'd been wrong and selfish. Garrett actually looked sincere for once. Olivia said she missed her best friend and wanted things to go back to normal. They didn't mention the chocolate incident directly, but we all knew what this was really about, a peace treaty. I accepted their apology because what else could I do? We hugged awkwardly and went our separate ways. I thought maybe things would actually get better. I was so stupid. The rumors started 3 days later, little whispers at first. People saying I was obsessed with Garrett, that I'd been stalking him since freshman year. Someone claimed they saw me following him home and taking pictures. Another person said I had a shrine to him in my locker. Complete lies, but told with enough detail that people believed them. My friend Emma asked me if it was true that I'd written Garrett love letters every day for a year. When I said no, she looked like she didn't believe me. Then my stuff started disappearing. First, it was small things. My calculator vanished from my backpack during lunch. My history notes disappeared from my locker even though I knew I'd locked it. Then bigger things. My entire English essay that I'd spent weeks on just gone from my folder. When I tried to explain to Mrs. Martinez that someone had stolen it. She gave me this look like I was making excuses. I had to redo the whole thing and got marked down for turning it in late. My friends started pulling away. Sarah suddenly couldn't hang out anymore because of family stuff. Jessica was always busy with other plans. Even Marcus, who I'd known since elementary school, started avoiding me in the halls. When I confronted him, he mumbled something about not wanting to get involved in drama. I asked what drama, and he just shrugged and walked away. 2 weeks into this nightmare, Olivia did something that changed everything. She posted a screenshot on Instagram. It looked like a text conversation between us where I admitted to poisoning them on purpose, where I bragged about it and said they deserved worse. The messages were fake, but they looked real. She'd even gotten the timestamps and read receipts to match up perfectly. The caption said she'd been too scared to come forward before, but couldn't stay silent anymore. The post went viral in our school within hours. Everyone shared it, adding their own comments about how they always knew I was crazy. People I'd never even talked to were calling me psycho in the comments. Someone made a meme with my yearbook photo and the words, "Warning, do not accept chocolates," underneath. It got over 300 likes before lunch ended. I tried to defend myself, but nobody listened. When I said the messages were fake, people asked why Olivia would lie. When I pointed out that the typing style wasn't even close to how I actually texted, they said I was just trying to cover my tracks. Even teachers started looking at me differently. Mr. Thompson moved my seat to the front corner of the room, away from everyone else. Mrs. Peterson banned me from using the culinary lab without supervision. I was completely alone. I ate lunch in the bathroom stall because the cafeteria felt like walking into a firing squad. I started leaving class a minute early to avoid the hallway crowds. Even at home, my parents kept asking if everything was okay. But how could I explain that my entire life was falling apart because of a fake screenshot? I knew I needed proof to clear my name, but I didn't know where to start. Then I remembered something. Garrett was always recording stuff for his social media. He had this YouTube channel where he posted vlogs, and he was constantly filming random moments for TikTok. If he recorded so much of his life, maybe he'd recorded something that could help me. The problem was getting access to his phone or computer. I couldn't exactly walk up and ask to borrow it. But then I remembered his little brother Carl went to our school too. 9th grader, kind of nerdy, always getting picked on by Garrett's friends. I'd seen Garrett shove him into lockers more than once, always playing it off as brotherly joking, but Carl's face said otherwise. I found Carl sitting alone in the library during study hall. He looked up nervously when I sat down, probably expecting me to start drama. Instead, I asked him about his coding project I'd heard him talking about in the computer lab. His whole face lit up. Nobody ever asked him about his interests. We talked for 20 minutes about programming and video games. Eventually, I casually mentioned how Garrett was always on his phone and asked if he ever let Carl use it. Carl snorted and said Garrett would unalive him if he touched his stuff. But then he added something interesting. Garrett used the same password for everything because he was too lazy to remember different ones, and Carl knew what it was because he'd seen Garrett type it a million times. I didn't push right then. I spent the next week being friendly to Carl, sitting with him at lunch when Garrett wasn't around, helping him with his English homework, listening to him complain about his brother. Finally, when I felt like he trusted me enough, I told him the truth. How Garrett and Olivia had humiliated me and were now trying to ruin my life. Carl wasn't surprised. He said Garrett had been doing stuff like that for years, just usually to people who couldn't fight back. Carl gave me the password. Garrett Rules 2005. Of course it was something that stupid. He also told me Garrett's phone automatically backed up to the cloud every night and the login was saved on their family computer. Carl said his parents were going to some charity dinner on Friday and Garrett would be at Olivia's house. I'd have a window to look through his files. That Friday, I told my parents I was studying at the library and went to Carl's house instead. He let me in and showed me to the computer in their dad's office. My hands were shaking as I logged into Garrett's cloud storage. There were thousands of files, photos, videos, messages, everything from the last 3 years. I started with the messages from around homecoming. What I found made me sick. There were texts between Garrett and Olivia from weeks before he asked me to the dance. They talked about how pathetic I was, how I followed them around like a lost puppy. Olivia said it would be hilarious to see my face when I realized Garrett was into her instead. They actually planned the whole thing, the cupcake, the flowers, everything. They wanted to humiliate me publicly and then hook up at the dance while I watched. But that wasn't even the worst part. I found messages from after the chocolate incident. They were planning their revenge down to the smallest detail. Olivia had spent hours creating that fake screenshot, even researching how to make it look authentic. They had a whole list of rumors to spread and people to turn against me. They called it Operation Destroy Sarah, like they were planning a military campaign. They laughed about how I'd end up eating lunch alone and failing classes because my homework would mysteriously disappear. I took screenshots of everything, every cruel message, every planned attack, every admission of what they'd done. I also found something else interesting. Videos from parties where Garrett and Olivia were drinking and talking trash about other people, including several of their own friends. Apparently Madison wasn't as pretty as she thought she was. Jake from the football team was a moron who could barely read. Even their teacher, Mr. Thompson, got roasted for his bald spot and boring tests. I saved everything to a flash drive Carl had given me. As I was about to log out, I found one more thing, a video from the night of homecoming. Garrett had recorded himself and Olivia in the car, laughing about how stupid I looked trying to dance alone, how I'd actually believed he wanted to go with me. Olivia did an impression of my face when I saw them kissing. They were both dying laughing. The timestamp showed this was while I was in the bathroom crying, trying to fix my makeup. I thanked Carl and went home with enough evidence to bury them, but I had to be smart about how I used it. If I just posted everything online, I'd look like the crazy stalker they said I was. I needed to make them reveal themselves. I went to Principal Morrison on Monday morning. She looked tired when I walked in, probably expecting me to complain about the rumors again. Instead, I calmly told her I had evidence that Garrett and Olivia were spreading lies about me. She She sighed and said gossip wasn't really something the administration could control. That's when I pulled out my phone and showed her the screenshot of them planning to destroy my reputation. Her expression changed immediately, but she still hesitated. Screenshots could be faked, she said, just like the ones Olivia had posted about me. She needed more proof before taking action against star students like Garrett and Olivia. I expected this. I asked if she'd be willing to investigate if I could get them to admit what they'd done. She said yes, but looked doubtful. I left her office and found Garrett and Olivia at their usual spot by the senior lockers. They were surrounded by friends, laughing about something on Olivia's phone. When they saw me coming, Garrett's face darkened. I walked right up to them, ignoring the way everyone stepped back like I had a disease. I said we needed to talk. Alone. Olivia laughed and asked why they'd want to talk to a psycho stalker. Her friends giggled. I stayed calm and said I had something they'd want to see. Something from Garrett's cloud storage. His face went white. He grabbed my arm and pulled me around the corner, Olivia following close behind. The hallway was empty except for us. Garrett demanded to know what I was talking about. I pulled out my phone and showed him one of his own messages about Operation Destroy Sarah. He tried to grab my phone, but I stepped back. Olivia was frantically whispering that I must have hacked his account, that this was illegal, that I'd go to jail. I let them panic for a minute before telling them what I wanted. They needed to tell Principal Morrison the truth about everything. The fake screenshots, the rumors, all of it. That's when they turned nasty. Garrett said nobody would believe me, that I was already the school joke, and this would just make it worse. Olivia added that they had connections. Her mom was on the school board. Garrett's dad donated thousands to the athletic program every year. They could make my life even worse than it already was. They'd make sure I never got into college. They'd tell everyone I was mentally unstable. They'd ruin my family's reputation too. What they didn't know was that I was recording the whole conversation. My phone was in my jacket pocket with the voice recorder app running. They kept going, getting more confident as they laid out exactly how they'd destroy me if I didn't delete everything and leave them alone. Garrett even admitted the chocolate thing was impressive, but said I'd played my hand too early. Now it was their turn to win. I let them finish their threats before pulling out my phone and stopping the recording. Their faces, when they realized what I'd done, were beautiful. Pure panic. They tried to say I'd tricked them, that the recording wouldn't count, but we all knew it was over. I walked back to Principal Morrison's office with them trailing behind, begging me to wait, to think about this, to be reasonable. I played the recording for Principal Morrison. She listened to the whole thing with her face getting darker and darker. When it finished, she looked at Garrett and Olivia like she was seeing them for the first time. She asked if they had anything to say. Olivia started crying. Real tears this time, not the fake ones she used to manipulate people. Garrett just stared at the floor. The investigation that followed was thorough. Principal Morrison interviewed dozens of students. Once people knew the truth was coming out, more kids came forward. Turns out Garrett and Olivia had pulled similar stunts before. A girl named Teresa told how they'd convinced everyone she was pregnant freshman year just because she'd refused to do Garrett's homework. A guy named Patrick explained how they'd planted test answers in his backpack and got him suspended for cheating because he'd struck Garrett for class president. The evidence kept piling up. Other kids had screenshots of cruel messages. Some had recordings of Garrett and Olivia laughing about their schemes. It was like a dam burst, and all their victims finally felt safe to speak up. Even some of their own friend group admitted they'd only hung out with them out of fear of becoming targets themselves. Garrett and Olivia were suspended immediately pending a full disciplinary hearing. Their parents tried to fight it, but the evidence was overwhelming. The fake screenshots Olivia had posted about me were traced back to her computer. The rumors were tracked to their original sources, all leading back to them. Even their college recommendation letters got pulled. Mrs. Peterson said she couldn't in good conscience recommend students who'd shown such cruelty. The hearing was brutal for them. They had to sit there while victim after victim explained how they'd been targeted, how their lives had been made miserable for petty reasons, how they'd been too scared to come forward before. Garrett's parents looked horrified. His mom actually apologized to me personally, saying she had no idea her son was capable of this. Olivia's mom tried to make excuses at first, but eventually just sat there in silence. In the end, they were expelled. Not just suspended, but completely removed from the school. They had to finish senior year at the Alternative Learning Center across town, the one where kids with serious behavioral problems went. Their college acceptances were rescinded. Garrett lost his football scholarship. Olivia's early admission to her dream school got pulled. Everything they'd worked for disappeared overnight. The day after the expulsion was announced, kids started talking to me again. Sarah apologized for abandoning me. Marcus bought me lunch and said he felt terrible for believing the rumors. Even Madison, who'd been one of Olivia's best friends, came up and said she was sorry for everything. It felt weird having people be nice to me again, like wearing shoes that used to fit but now felt foreign. Carl became my actual friend after everything. We still ate lunch together sometimes, talking about video games and coding. He said his house was way more peaceful without Garrett around. His parents were in family therapy, trying to figure out how they'd missed the signs of what their older son was really like. Carl seemed lighter somehow, like a weight had been lifted off his shoulders. I wish I could say everything went back to normal, but it didn't. Not really. I still sometimes ate lunch in the bathroom out of habit. I still flinched when people whispered in the hallways. Trust didn't come easy anymore, but at least I could walk through school without feeling like everyone hated me. My grades recovered once my homework stopped disappearing. Mrs. Peterson let me back in the advanced culinary class. I even made a few new friends who thought what I did with the chocolates was brilliant karma. The last time I saw Garrett and Olivia was at graduation. They weren't graduating with us, obviously, but they came to watch their former friends walk across the stage. They looked different, smaller somehow. Garrett had lost weight and his perfect hair was messy. Olivia wasn't wearing any makeup and kept her head down. When our eyes met across the football field, they quickly looked away. No anger, no threats, just defeat. I got into my first choice college with a partial scholarship for culinary arts. My essay about overcoming adversity me, and standing up to bullies apparently impressed the admissions committee. My parents were proud. My real friends were happy for me. Even Mr. Thompson wrote me a recommendation letter saying I'd shown remarkable resilience in the face of unfair treatment. Sometimes I wonder if I went too far with the chocolates, if I should have just confronted them directly about homecoming instead of plotting revenge. But then I remember that video of them laughing at me in the car, the way they'd planned everything to cause maximum humiliation, the joy they took in watching me suffer. They didn't just break my heart that night. They tried to break my spirit. They almost succeeded too. But I'm stronger than they thought. Smarter too. They assumed I'd just take whatever they dished out because that's what I'd always done before. They never considered that the quiet girl they'd pushed too far might push back, that their perfect plan might backfire spectacularly, that karma might come in the form of chocolate-covered consequences. I don't feel bad about what happened to them. They made their choices and faced the results. Every rumor they spread, every lie they told, every person they hurt came back to destroy them. I just helped speed up the process. And if they learned anything from the experience, maybe they'll think twice before targeting someone else at their new school. Though somehow I doubt it. People like that rarely change. They just find new victims. As for me, I learned that staying silent doesn't make problems go away. It just makes them worse. I learned that bullies count on their victims being too scared or too nice to fight back. And I learned that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's getting evidence. Documentation beats retaliation every time. Let them hang themselves with their own words. All you have to do is hold the rope. I also learned to make really good chocolates. My professor at culinary school says I have a natural talent for flavor combinations. I stick to normal ingredients now, though. No more special additions. Turns out regular chocolate is sweet enough on its own. And the only thing I want to leave people with now is a good taste in their mouth. Well, mostly anyway. There might be a few people from high school who should still avoid accepting candy from me, just to be safe. The next few weeks at school were weird. People would come up to me randomly and apologize for things they'd said or done. Jennifer from my PE class brought me cookies she'd baked as a sorry gift. Benjamin, who sat behind me in chemistry, offered to be lab partners. Even teachers treated me differently. Mrs. Peterson asked if I wanted to help plan the end-of-year culinary showcase. Mr. Thompson actually smiled at me in the hallway, but I was still paranoid. Every time someone whispered, I wondered if new rumors were starting. When my pencil case went missing, I immediately suspected sabotage before finding it under my bed at home. Trust was hard. I'd learned that people could pretend to be your friend while planning your destruction. How could I know who was genuine? Then something unexpected happened. Teresa, the girl who'd been targeted by Garrett and Olivia freshman year, started sitting with me at lunch. She didn't make a big deal about it, just showed up with her tray and asked if the seat was taken. We didn't talk much at first, just ate in comfortable silence. Eventually, she told me the full story of what they'd done to her, how the pregnancy rumor had followed her for 2 years, how her parents had made her take 3 pregnancy tests because they didn't believe her denials, how she'd considered transferring schools just to escape it. More kids started joining us. Patrick brought his friend Gabriel, who'd been too scared to report when Garrett had stolen his phone and posted embarrassing photos from it. Sarah joined us after Olivia had convinced everyone she was bulimic because she'd turned down cake at a party. Joyce came over when she heard we were the table for Garrett and Olivia survivors. By the end of the week, we needed to push 2 tables together. We didn't just talk about what they'd done to us. We talked about normal stuff too. Movies, homework, college plans. But there was an understanding between us. We'd all been through something similar and survived. It felt good not being alone anymore, not having to explain why I still checked my locker 3 times to make sure it was locked. One day, Deborah from the yearbook committee asked if she could interview me. She was doing a feature on standing up to bullying and wanted my story. I almost said no. Part of me wanted to forget everything and move on. But then I thought about all the kids who might be going through the same thing, who might think they had no options except to suffer in silence. So I agreed. The interview was harder than I expected. Talking about homecoming brought back all those feelings of humiliation. Describing the isolation made me realize how close I'd come to giving up entirely. But Deborah was patient and kind. She let me take breaks when I needed them. She didn't push for details I wasn't ready to share. When the article came out, she'd written it beautifully. Not sensationalized or dramatic, just honest. The response was overwhelming. Kids I'd never talked to before thanked me for speaking up. A freshman named Morgan said they'd been dealing with similar bullying, and my story gave them courage to report it. Even parents reached out. One mom sent a letter saying her daughter had finally told her about harassment she'd been facing after reading my interview. Of course, not everyone was supportive. Some of Garrett and Olivia's old friends still blamed me. They said I'd ruined their lives over petty high school drama, that I should have just let it go instead of destroying their futures. A few anonymous notes showed up in my locker calling me vindictive and worse, but their opinions didn't matter anymore. I knew the truth, and so did everyone else who mattered. Prom season arrived, and I wasn't planning to go. The thought of another formal dance made me nauseous, but my lunch table friends convinced me it would be different this time. Teresa offered to do my makeup. Patrick said his older brother could drive us all in his van. Joyce found a dress for me at a thrift store that was actually prettier than my homecoming one. It was emerald green with delicate beading and cost $30 instead of $300. The night of prom, we all got ready at Teresa's house. Her mom made us dinner and took about 1,000 photos. Nobody posed with the wrong person or made anyone feel left out. When we got to the venue, we stuck together as a group. No couples drama, no third wheel situations, just friends having fun. When a slow song came on, we all stayed on the dance floor in a big circle, swaying and laughing at how ridiculous we looked. I actually enjoyed myself, danced until my feet hurt, ate too much cake, took stupid photos in the photo booth with props. It was what homecoming should have been. No drama, no ulterior motives, just teenagers being teenagers. When the night ended, I realized I'd gone 4 hours without thinking about Garrett and Olivia once. Senior year started winding down. College acceptances came in, and everyone was making plans. I got into 3 schools schools, but decided on the Culinary Institute 2 states away. Far enough to start fresh, but close enough to come home when I wanted. My parents were sad about me leaving, but excited about my future. They'd watched me go through hell and come out stronger. My mom said she was proud of how I'd handled everything. Carl got into MIT early admission. Turns out when you're not being terrorized by your older brother, you can focus on academics. He was nervous about leaving home, but excited about being around people who shared his interests. We promised to keep in touch. He'd become like the little brother I never had, way better than his actual brother had ever been to him. The senior class trip was to an amusement park. I wasn't going to go, but my friends talked me into it. We spent the day riding roller coasters and eating overpriced food. At one point, I saw two familiar figures by the funnel cake stand. Garrett and Olivia were there with what looked like their alternative school group. They saw me too, but quickly looked away. The senior class trip was to an amusement park. I wasn't going to go, but my friends talked me into it. We spent the day riding roller coasters and eating overpriced food. At one point, I saw two familiar figures by the funnel cake stand. Garrett and Olivia were there with what looked like their alternative school group. They saw me too, but quickly looked away. No confrontation, no drama. We just existed in the same space without interacting. Progress. Graduation day was perfect. Sunny, but not too hot. My parents got there early to get good seats. My dad brought his camera with the huge lens that embarrassed me, but I was secretly glad he cared so much. When they called my name, I walked across that stage with my head high. No more hiding, no more shrinking into the background. I'd earned this moment. The graduation party circuit was intense. Every night for a week, someone was hosting something. I went to a few, but skipped the ones hosted by Garrett and Olivia's old crowd. No point in making things awkward. At Teresa's party, we all ended up in her pool at midnight, still in our clothes, laughing about how we'd survived high school. Her mom came out yelling about us getting the carpet wet, but she was smiling. Summer flew by in a blur of work and preparation. I picked up extra shifts at the ice cream shop to save money for college. My parents took me dorm shopping and went overboard buying things I'd never use. A shower caddy with 20 compartments, a desk lamp that had 15 different settings, color-coded hangers that I'd definitely mix up within a week, but their enthusiasm was sweet. The night before I left for college, Carl came over to say goodbye. He brought me a flash drive and said it had all the evidence from Garrett's cloud on it in case I ever needed it. I told him I didn't want it, that I was done with all that, but he insisted, said it was better to have it and not need it than the opposite. Smart kid. My parents drove me to campus in our overpacked minivan. My mom cried 3 times before we even got there. My dad kept making jokes to lighten the mood, but I could see he was emotional too. When we got to my dorm, my roommate was already there. A girl named Emery from Oregon who seemed normal. No red flags, no mean girl energy, just nervous excitement like me. Saying goodbye to my parents was harder than I expected. We'd been through so much together over the past year. They'd supported me even when the whole school turned against me. Never doubted my side of the story. Never suggested I should have handled things differently. Just loved me through it all. I hugged them extra tight and promised to call every week. The first few weeks of college were an adjustment. Nobody knew my story. I was just another freshman trying to figure out where classes were and how to do laundry without turning everything pink. It felt good being anonymous. No whispers when I walked by. No reputation preceding me. Just a clean slate. I made friends in my culinary classes pretty quickly. Turns out people who love food are generally pretty cool. We formed study groups that usually turned into cooking experiments. My dorm kitchen became our test lab. Reese from my knife skills class taught me how to julienne vegetables properly. Hayden showed me their secret for perfect pie crust. Greer and I competed to see who could make the best chocolate souffle. Sometimes I'd get messages from people back home, updates on how things were going. Teresa got into her dream school for journalism. Patrick was taking a gap year to travel. Joyce was staying local for community college, but happy about it. Even Carl checked in regularly, sending memes about college life and updates on his coding projects. I heard through the grapevine that Garrett and Olivia had broken up. Apparently, when you build a relationship on hurting others, it doesn't have a strong foundation. Garrett was working at his dad's company, not going to college at all. Olivia was at some small school nobody had heard of. Their fall from grace was complete. I didn't feel happy about it exactly, just relieved it was over. My first semester grades were solid. Turns out when you're not worried about your homework being stolen or rumors being spread, you can actually focus on learning. My chocolate unit was my strongest. The professor said I had an intuitive understanding of flavor combinations. I didn't mention my previous experience with creative chocolate making. Some stories are better left in the past. Winter break meant going home for the first time. I was nervous about being back in that town, but it was different now. The high school drama felt distant, ancient history. I met up with my lunch table crew, and we went to our old spot at the diner. Talked about college and how weird it was being adults. Nobody mentioned Garrett or Olivia. They'd become irrelevant to our lives. The rest of freshman year passed quickly. Spring semester brought harder classes, but also more confidence. I entered a student cooking competition and placed third. Made friends outside the culinary program. Even went on a few dates with a guy from my statistics class who made me laugh. Nothing serious, but nice, normal. No hidden agendas or cruel plots. When summer came, I got an internship at a bakery near campus instead of going home. Spent my days learning from a master pastry chef who'd trained in France. She was tough but fair. Pushed me to be better without tearing me down. I learned more that summer than in some of my actual classes. Plus, I got to take home leftover pastries. My roommate loved me for that. Sophomore year started, and I felt like a different person than the girl who'd been humiliated at homecoming. Stronger, more confident, less willing to accept poor treatment. When a girl in my advanced baking class tried to start drama about group project responsibilities, I shut it down immediately. No passive acceptance, no letting things slide, just clear boundaries and expectations. I decided to minor in business along with my culinary degree. Figured if I wanted to open my own place someday, I should know how to run it. The classes were boring compared to cooking, but necessary. Plus, it gave me a backup plan. Always good to have options. Lessons learned from putting all my trust in the wrong people. Sometimes late at night, I'd think about that homecoming dance, not with sadness anymore, just curiosity about how different my life might have been. If Garrett had actually wanted to go with me, if Olivia had really been my friend. But then I'd look around my dorm room at my culinary awards and photos with real friends and realize I was exactly where I needed to be. The chocolate incident became a funny story I'd tell sometimes at parties. People would gasp and laugh and say they couldn't believe I'd done that, but they also understood why. Everyone had a story about someone who'd pushed them too far. Mine just...
That story got boring.
I called Teresa, told her maybe we should stop, think about our... My best friend framed me for armed robbery and forced me to take the fall. So when I got out, I spent years digging up evidence and sent him to prison. 7 years later, he's writing letters teaching others to frame people, and one of his victims came to me for help. My best friend framed me for armed robbery and ruined my life. So I exposed him and watched him go to prison. 2 years later, he sent his cousin to threaten my friends. I didn't realize the night I got arrested would end with 3 cracked ribs and a felony charge. 10 minutes earlier, I'd been walking home from a house party with my best friend Jake. I was arguing with my mom on the phone when he said he wanted to stop at the gas station for a beer. I nodded, kept walking a few feet ahead, pacing while I tried to calm my mom down. A few minutes later, Jake caught up to me, slightly out of breath, said the line was long, and handed me his jacket since I was shivering. We made it about 4 blocks before the cop cars swarmed. They tackled me hard, slammed me to the pavement, cuffed me before I could say anything. I couldn't breathe. They kept shouting about the robbery, about a mask, about a weapon. I didn't understand any of it. At the station, they pulled surveillance stills from the gas station footage. The guy in the mask was wearing a jacket that looked a lot like Jake's, except now it was on me. My fingerprints weren't on the register, but they found cash stashed in my room. Later, I found out Jake had hidden it there. He visited me once, said, I panicked. I didn't think it would go this far. Just do the time. It's juvie, man. You'll be out in no time. I wanted to scream, but I was 17. I didn't have proof. Just a broken body, a public defender, and a judge who said I needed to be made an example. I spent 9 months in juvie. When I got out, the world had moved on. My mom didn't fully believe me. My friends didn't text. My record followed me everywhere. I took what work I could get. Cleaning, warehouse loading, whatever paid under the table. Jake, he was doing great. He even dated someone I used to like back in school. I tried not to care. Then one night, scrolling on a cousin's Instagram, I saw a photo. It was Jake on the night of the party, wearing the same jacket he gave me. Same patch, same rip on the cuff. I checked the timestamp. Same night, same hour. I pulled up the police report and felt my heart race. The times matched. I spent the next week tracking everything. Jake's location check-ins, any and all photos taken and posted the night of the robbery. Then I remembered the hardware shop across the street from that gas station. I walked in, explained I was looking for footage for a school project, and asked if they ever kept old camera archives. The owner handed me a dusty USB, said their dad was a hoarder and refused to get rid of anything, even security footage, so they rarely deleted. The footage didn't show the robbery, but it showed a guy matching Jake's build, wearing that exact jacket, walking into the gas station right when the robbery went down, and me, standing outside, on the phone. I sent it to my old public defender. She didn't respond, so I contacted a local legal clinic that helps with wrongful convictions. A volunteer attorney, Matt, met with me. He believed me, said this might qualify for a review. Then it got worse. Jake found out. He showed up outside the warehouse where I worked, pulled me aside and hissed, "Why are you digging this up? You're gonna ruin my life again." I pulled out my phone, recording. He didn't notice. He kept going. "You already took the fall. Let it go. You think anyone's gonna believe you now? You're a felon. I'm a manager." That night, I posted a photo of the jacket, the timestamps, and said nothing else. Just, "Still think I wore this?" Jake panicked, went into a school alumni group and claimed I was stalking him, harassing him, said I was obsessed. People started taking sides. I stayed quiet until I released the full audio recording. The legal team took it from there. They filed to have the case reopened. Jake was subpoenaed. Under pressure, he got sloppy. In a last-ditch meeting, he confronted Matt, not realizing Matt was recording too. Said, "Even if I did it, they already locked him up. What more do you want?" That was it. The footage, the photo, the recording, it added up. The judge overturned my conviction. My record was cleared. Jake got charged with obstruction and robbery. He broke down when they cuffed him, said it was a mistake, that he was just a kid, that he didn't mean for it to go this far. I didn't say anything. The community started reaching out. Old teachers, co-workers. Even my mom cried when the news came. But I didn't feel proud. I just felt tired. That night, I got a message from someone I didn't know. "You don't know me, but I think your friend did the same thing to my brother last year. Want to talk?" I stared at the screen. Then I typed, "Yeah, I do." The message was from a girl named Teresa. She lived about 2 hours away. Her brother Anthony was doing 18 months for a break-in at a pharmacy. She said the details were too similar to ignore. I called her that night. She picked up on the first ring. Her voice was shaky but determined. She told me Anthony had been hanging out with Jake the summer before my arrest. They'd met at some basketball camp. One night, Jake convinced Anthony to come along while he picked up something from the pharmacy. Jake went in alone. Anthony waited in the car. Next thing Anthony knew, alarms were going off and Jake was sprinting back. He threw a bag in the back seat and told Anthony to drive. Anthony panicked and drove. They got pulled over 3 blocks away. The bag had prescription pills and cash. Jake told the cops it was all Anthony's idea, that Anthony forced him to come along. Anthony had priors for shoplifting when he was 14. The cops believed Jake. Anthony got charged. Jake walked free. I felt sick listening to her. The pattern was right there. Jake picking vulnerable friends, setting them up, walking away clean. Teresa had been trying to help her brother appeal, but nobody would listen. She'd seen my story on social media when everything blew up. She knew I'd understand. We talked for 3 hours that night. She had some evidence, but not enough. Anthony remembered Jake wearing gloves that night, remembered him knowing exactly where the cameras were, but it was all circumstantial. I told her I'd help however I could. The next day, I started digging into Jake's past. I reached out to people from his old schools, his old jobs. Most people didn't want to talk, but a few did. There was William from Jake's freshman year. He'd gotten expelled for stealing from the school store. He swore Jake was with him, but Jake testified he wasn't. There was Diana, who worked with Jake at a restaurant. Money went missing from the register on her shift. She got fired. Jake got promoted. The stories kept coming. Little things, big things, always the same pattern. Jake would befriend someone, get close. Then when something went wrong, they'd take the fall. I started documenting everything, creating timelines, finding connections. Teresa was doing the same on her end. We'd text each other updates throughout the day, compare notes at night. Then Jake's mom called me. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. She was crying, said Jake was falling apart, that he needed help, that maybe I could talk to him. I told her I couldn't do that. She begged, said he'd been having nightmares, that he kept talking about making things right. I hung up. 10 minutes later, Jake texted me, said he wanted to meet, to explain everything, to apologize properly. I screenshot the message and sent it to Teresa. She called immediately, told me not to go alone, that it could be a trap, but I was curious and angry, and maybe a little stupid. I agreed to meet him at a coffee shop downtown. Public place, lots of witnesses. I got there early, sat where I could see the door, recorded everything on my phone. Jake showed up looking rough, dark circles under his eyes, hands shaking. He sat down and immediately started talking. Told me about his dad leaving when he was 12, about his mom working 3 jobs, about feeling invisible, about discovering he was good at lying, at manipulating, at surviving. He said it started small, blaming other kids for things he did, getting out of trouble, getting ahead. Then it became a game, seeing how much he could get away with, how far he could push it. By high school, it was second nature. Find someone trusting, someone who needed a friend, use them, discard them, move on. He looked me in the eyes and said he was sorry, that he'd been in therapy, that he wanted to make amends. I asked him about Anthony. His face went pale. He said that was different, that Anthony was already planning the break-in, that he just went along. I pulled out my phone, showed him Teresa's messages, the evidence she'd gathered. His story started changing, getting defensive, blaming Anthony for being careless, for getting caught. I realized then that he wasn't really sorry. He was scared. Scared I'd keep digging. Scared more people would come forward. Scared his whole life would unravel. I told him to confess, to come clean about Anthony, about everyone else. He laughed, said I had no proof, that nobody would believe a bunch of criminals trying to clear their names. That's when I noticed something. Jake kept checking his phone, glancing at the door, acting nervous in a different way. I pretended to go to the bathroom, walked past the window instead, saw a car parked outside with someone in it, watching, waiting. I went back to the table. Jake was texting frantically. I grabbed my stuff and said I was leaving. He tried to stop me, said we weren't done talking. I pushed past him, started walking fast, heard footsteps behind me, started running, made it to my car, locked the doors, saw Jake and another guy standing on the sidewalk, watching me drive away. That night I installed new locks, told Teresa what happened. She said her brother had been getting threats in prison, other inmates telling him to stop making noise about his case, to accept his situation. We knew Jake was behind it somehow, but proving it was another thing. I couldn't sleep that night, kept checking the windows, jumping at every sound. This was bigger than I thought. Jake wasn't just some kid who made mistakes. He was calculating, organized, dangerous. The next morning I found my car tires slashed, no cameras in my apartment lot, no witnesses, just a message. Stay quiet or things get worse. I called Teresa, told her maybe we should stop, think about our safety. She said her brother had already lost everything, that backing down now would mean he'd rot in prison for nothing. She was right, but I was scared, really scared, and I knew this was just the beginning. I spent the next few days looking over my shoulder constantly. Every car that drove by too slow made me nervous. Every unknown number that called made my heart race. I'd let it ring, watching the screen until it went to voicemail, then immediately delete whatever message was left without listening. I started taking different routes to work, doubling back through side streets, checking my mirrors obsessively, parking in different spots each day, sometimes walking an extra 3 blocks just to avoid patterns. Basic stuff, but it made me feel slightly safer. My apartment felt less secure than before. I installed a new deadbolt, one of those heavy-duty ones the locksmith said would take serious effort to break, added a security bar to the sliding glass door, even bought one of those doorbell cameras, though I spent more time obsessively checking the footage than actually feeling protected by it. Every delivery person became suspicious. Every neighbor I didn't recognize became a potential threat. Teresa called me one night with news. Her voice was excited but cautious, like she was afraid to hope. She'd found another victim, a girl named Judy from Jake's community college days. She'd been accused of cheating on a final exam. The professor found answer keys in her backpack during a random bag check. Judy swore she didn't put them there, pleaded with anyone who would listen. Nobody believed her. She failed the class, lost her scholarship, dropped out. Her whole life trajectory changed in an instant. Judy remembered Jake being super helpful before the exam, offering to study together in the library, borrowing her backpack to carry some books when his broke. She never connected the dots until Teresa reached out. Now she was angry, ready to talk, the kind of anger that had been simmering for years, waiting for validation. We set up a group chat. Me, Teresa, Judy, started sharing everything we knew, building a timeline of Jake's scams. It went back further than we thought. Middle school even. Always the same pattern. The helpful friend, the convenient access, the perfect setup, the devastating consequences for everyone but him. Judy shared more details as she got comfortable. How Jake had dated her roommate briefly, giving him access to their dorm room. How he'd known exactly which professor did random bag checks. How he'd suggested she bring her backpack that day instead of just notebooks. Every detail perfectly orchestrated. Then William reached out. Remember him from Jake's freshman year? He'd been following my story online, said he wanted to help, had some old text messages saved, screenshots of Jake planning things, talking about easy marks and perfect perfect setup. The messages were chilling in their casualness. Jake discussing ruining lives like he was planning a party. Our group grew to 4, then 5 when Diana joined, then 6, 7, 8. Every few days, someone new would reach out. Someone Jake had burned. Someone ready to speak up. Each story adding another piece to the puzzle. Another confirmation that this wasn't coincidence or misunderstanding. This was deliberate, calculated, repeated. Jake must have noticed the online activity. The old posts being shared, the comments piling up, because suddenly he changed tactics, started playing victim harder, posted this long sob story about mental health, about being bullied, about making mistakes as a kid, about how everyone deserves forgiveness and second chances. People ate it up. The comment section filled with support, with people attacking us for cyberbullying him. Some of his friends started defending him online, saying we were just bitter, looking for someone to blame for our own mistakes, claiming we were forming a witch hunt against a good person who'd made a few mistakes. It was frustrating watching him flip the narrative, but we kept collecting evidence, kept building our case. Every new person who joined brought receipts, old messages, photos, witnesses. Then things got weird at work. My supervisor pulled me aside during lunch break, said someone had called asking about my employment, asking if I was reliable, if I had anger issues, if I was stable, if I'd ever threatened anyone. He thought it was strange, so he wanted to let me know. The caller had claimed to be from a background check company, but when my supervisor asked for details, they'd hung up. That same day, Teresa's mom got a call. Someone claiming to be from a collection agency, saying Teresa owed thousands in debt, threatening legal action, garnishing wages, destroying her credit. It was all fake, but it rattled her family. Teresa's mom was already stressed about Anthony. This pushed her to tears. Judy's ex-boyfriend suddenly got messages from a fake profile, photos that looked like Judy with another guy, trying to start drama, cause problems in her life. The photos were clearly edited, but in the heat of the moment, they caused a huge fight. Judy spent hours trying to prove they were fake, to explain she was being targeted. We realized Jake was hitting back, using information he'd gathered about us over the years, trying to destabilize our lives, make us back off. It was actually working on some people. 2 members of our group went quiet, stopped responding to messages. One later admitted they couldn't handle the stress. The other just disappeared entirely. I was getting paranoid, started documenting everything. Every weird call, every strange encounter, every online threat. Created a spreadsheet with dates, times, details, screenshots of everything. Teresa was doing the same. We compared notes every night, tried to stay ahead of whatever Jake was planning. The stress was eating at me. I wasn't sleeping well, jumping at shadows. My work performance started suffering. Then Anthony called Teresa from prison, said a guy had approached him in the yard, offered to make his problems go away if he just stopped talking about Jake. When Anthony refused, the guy said accidents happen in prison all the time, mentioned specific ways people get hurt, made it clear this wasn't an idle threat. Teresa was terrified, wanted to pull Anthony out of general population, but that required lawyers, money, time we didn't have. I decided to try something different. I reached out to Jake's ex-girlfriend, Madison. They dated senior year. Bad breakup from what I remembered. She agreed to meet at a restaurant downtown. Seemed nervous, but curious. Kept looking around like she expected Jake to appear. Madison told me Jake had been controlling, manipulative, would gaslight her constantly, make her question her own memory, her own judgment. She said the final straw was when money went missing from her mom's purse during a family dinner. Jake convinced everyone Madison's little brother took it. The kid was only 12, got in huge trouble, grounded for months, lost his parents' trust. Months later, Madison found the money in Jake's car. When she confronted him, he said he was just holding it for safekeeping, that she was overreacting, that she was trying to cause problems in their relationship. She had photos from that time, messages where Jake admitted to taking things, to lying. Nothing about framing people specifically, but it showed his pattern, his mindset. She agreed to share them with our group, said she'd been carrying this guilt about her brother for years, how their relationship never fully recovered, how her parents still brought up his theft sometimes. That night, Jake showed up at my apartment, just standing in the parking lot, staring up at my window. I watched him through the blinds for 20 minutes. He never moved, just stood there, hands in his pockets, face expressionless. I called the police, but he left before they arrived. No crime in standing in a public space, they said. I didn't sleep that night, kept checking the window, jumping at every sound. The next day, I found a note on my car. You're making a mistake. This ends badly for everyone. No signature, but I knew who it was from. The handwriting looked rushed, angry. I kept the note, added it to my growing file, showed it to Teresa. She said she'd gotten one too. So had Judy. Teresa had an idea. What if we got Jake to admit things again, but this time with multiple witnesses, better recording, make it undeniable. It was risky, but we were running out of options. Anthony's situation was getting worse. Jake was escalating. We needed something concrete, something that couldn't be explained away or denied. We planned it carefully, spent hours going over every detail. Judy would reach out to Jake, say she wanted to apologize, to move on, ask to meet. I'd be there secretly recording. Teresa would be backup. William and Diana would be nearby just in case. We even had contingency plans. What if he brought people? What if he got violent? What if he didn't show? Jake agreed to meet Judy at a park. Public, but not too crowded. Perfect for our purposes. I got there early, set up my phone in my jacket pocket, tested the audio, made sure the battery was full. Teresa parked where she could see everything. William and Diana waited by the playground. Everyone checking in via text. Everyone ready. Judy showed up right on time, sat on a bench near the duck pond. Looked nervous, but determined. She'd practiced what she was going to say. We'd run through it dozen times. Jake arrived 5 minutes later. Sat down, but kept distance between them. Started talking immediately, saying he was glad she reached out, that he'd been thinking about the past, about making amends. His voice had that same fake sincerity I remembered. Judy played it perfectly. Said she'd been struggling since college, that losing her scholarship ruined her life, that she just wanted to understand why it happened. Jake started spinning his usual story, about misunderstandings, about being young, about everyone making mistakes. He was good, smooth, almost believable if you didn't know better. Then Judy pushed, asked him directly if he put those answer keys in her bag. His whole demeanor changed, got defensive, said she was trying to trap him, that this was some kind of setup. He stood up to leave, started looking around suspiciously. That's when I stepped out, phone visible, recording everything. Jake's face went white. He looked around, saw Teresa approaching, William and Diana walking over, realized he was surrounded, not physically. We kept our distance. distance, but he knew we were all there, all witnessing, all recording. He tried to run. I followed. Not chasing, really, just walking, keeping him in sight. He turned a corner, ran straight into 2 more people from our group. Word had spread. People had come on their own, wanting to see him face consequences, wanting to see him squirm the way he'd made them squirm. Jake ended up back at the bench, surrounded by 8 people he'd wronged, all recording, all waiting. He broke down, but not in a guilty way, in an angry way. Started ranting about how we were all losers, how we deserved what happened, how he was smarter than all of us. His mask completely off now, the real Jake finally showing. Then he said it, the thing we needed. Yeah, I set you all up. So what? You think anyone cares? You think this matters? I'll just deny it later. Say you all ganged up on me, edited the videos. Who's gonna believe a bunch of criminals? He was practically spitting the words. Years of superiority complex finally boiling over. That's when someone new spoke up, a woman I didn't recognize. She introduced herself as Joyce, said she was a social worker, had been following our story online, came to see for herself. She'd recorded everything too, from a different angle, with clear audio, professional witness, unbiased, credible. Jake realized his mistake, tried to backtrack, say he was just angry, being sarcastic, but it was too late. We had him on multiple recordings, from multiple angles, admitting to everything. His words clear, undeniable, no way to explain it away. He left quickly after that, practically running to his car. We all stood there for a moment, not celebrating really, just processing. We'd done it. We had proof, real proof, the kind that would hold up, the kind that couldn't be dismissed. That night our group chat was buzzing, everyone sharing their recordings, comparing angles, making sure we had everything backed up. Multiple copies, cloud storage, physical drives. Joyce offered to help us organize everything, make it presentable. She knew people who could help, lawyers, advocates, media contacts, but Jake wasn't done. The next morning, Judy's car windshield was smashed. Teresa's mom got more threatening calls. William found his social media hacked, nasty messages sent to his contacts. Jake was lashing out, trying to intimidate us into silence. Desperate now, dangerous. I was at work when my supervisor called me in again, said he'd gotten more calls, this time saying I was dangerous, that I'd threatened people, that I had a history of violence. He said he didn't believe it, but corporate was asking questions. My job was now at risk. Years of rebuilding my life potentially undone by more lies. That afternoon, Anthony called Teresa again. The threats in prison had gotten worse. Someone had pushed him downstairs, said next time would be worse. Teresa was crying on the phone, saying maybe we should stop, that it wasn't worth her brother getting hurt. I could hear her mom in the background, equally distraught. But then something unexpected happened. Other inmates started protecting Anthony. Turns out some of them had been following our story too, had their own experiences with people like Jake. They formed a sort of protective circle around Anthony. The threats stopped. Even in prison, truth and solidarity mattered. Meanwhile, Jake was spiraling. His social media became unhinged, posting constantly about being persecuted, about conspiracy theories, about everyone being out to get him. His friends started distancing themselves. His jaw started asking questions, the carefully constructed image crumbling. We decided to release everything at once. All the recordings, all the evidence, all the stories. Created a simple website, put everything in chronological order, made it undeniable, then shared it everywhere. Social media, local news, community boards, anywhere people would listen. The response was immediate. Local news picked it up. Not big national coverage, but enough. People started sharing their own stories about Jake, things we didn't even know about. The pattern went deeper than we'd imagined. Elementary school, summer camps, sports teams, everywhere he'd been, he'd left victims. Jake tried damage control, hired a lawyer, sent cease and desist letters, but we'd been careful. Everything we shared was true, documented, verified. His lawyer dropped him after seeing the evidence. Even legal professionals wouldn't touch this mess. Then the real consequences started. Jake's job fired him. His apartment complex evicted him after multiple complaints. His friends completely cut him off. Even his mom stopped defending him publicly. The isolation he'd inflicted on others finally reaching him. But we weren't satisfied with just social consequences. We wanted real justice. For Anthony especially, still sitting in prison for something he didn't do. Joyce connected us with better lawyers, people who specialized in wrongful convictions, people who understood the system. They reviewed Anthony's case, said with our new evidence they could file for immediate release, maybe even get the conviction overturned entirely. It would take time, but they were optimistic. For the first time in years, Teresa had real hope. Jake made one last desperate move. He showed up at Teresa's house. Her mom was home alone. He pushed his way inside, started demanding Teresa call everything off, said he'd make things right if we just stopped. His desperation palpable, dangerous. Teresa's mom was tough though, grabbed a baseball bat, told him to leave. When he wouldn't, she called 911, said there was an intruder. Jake fled before police arrived, but it was enough. They issued a warrant for his arrest, breaking and entering, criminal trespass, intimidation. They picked him up 2 days later, charged with breaking and entering, intimidation, harassment. His bail was set high. His mom couldn't afford it. He sat in county jail awaiting trial, finally experiencing the system from the other side. That's when more people started coming forward, people we hadn't even found, all with similar stories, all willing to testify. The prosecutor started building additional cases, the robbery that got me locked up, the pharmacy break-in, others we didn't even know about. Years of crimes finally being connected. Our group became a support network. We'd meet online every week, share updates, offer encouragement, help each other heal. It wasn't just about Jake anymore. It was about rebuilding our lives, about healing, about preventing this from happening to others. Judy went back to school, got her degree. Diana started her own business. William became an advocate for juvenile justice reform. Everyone finding their own path forward, reclaiming the futures that had been stolen. Anthony's case moved faster than expected. The new evidence was overwhelming. Combined with Jake's other charges, the prosecutor agreed to expedite review. Within 2 months, Anthony was released. Time served. Conviction overturned. Record cleared. Teresa sent me a video of him walking out. She was crying. Her mom was crying. Anthony just looked stunned, like he couldn't believe it was real. They hugged for a long time, years of separation finally ending. We all met up in person for the first time at a restaurant. Anthony was there, finally free. He was quiet at first, institutionalized. But as the night went on, he opened up, thanked everyone, said he'd given up hope until we came along, said knowing people believed him kept him going. Jake's trial started soon after. Multiple charges across multiple jurisdictions. He tried to plea bargain, admit to lesser charges, but prosecutors wanted maximum sentences, wanted to make an example. Sound familiar? Except this time, it was actually deserved. I testified at the main trial. So did Judy, Diana, William, Anthony, Teresa. One by one, we told our stories, showed our evidence, made it clear this wasn't isolated. This was a pattern, a decade of deliberate harm. The jury listened intently. Some shook their heads, some looked angry. Jake's lawyer tried to paint him as troubled, needing help, not punishment. But the evidence was too strong, the pattern too clear, the harm too real. The jury didn't buy it. They saw through the act just like we finally had. Guilty on all counts, sentenced to 15 years total across all cases, eligible for parole in 7. Jake cried when they read the verdict, begged for mercy, said he was sorry, really sorry this time, but sorry for getting caught, not for what he'd done. I felt nothing watching them lead him away. No satisfaction, no closure, just empty. All those years I'd lost, all the pain. For what? So he could feel powerful, smart, superior? The waste of it all was staggering. After the trial, we all went our separate ways mostly. Stayed in touch online, but less frequently. Everyone focused on moving forward, building the lives that had been interrupted, making up for lost time, healing. I got a better job, started taking night classes, slowly rebuilt relationships with family, even started dating someone, Kelly. Met them at a coffee shop. They knew my story, didn't care. Said everyone deserves second chances. Said the past doesn't define us. Teresa's doing well too. Studying law now. Wants to help other wrongfully convicted people. Says our experience opened her eyes to how broken the system is. How easy it is to destroy someone's life. How hard it is to rebuild. Anthony struggled at first. Prison changes you, but he's getting help, therapy, support groups. Has a job now, a girlfriend. Still has bad days, but more good ones. He sent me a thank you card last Christmas. Just said, thank you for believing. Made me cry. Sometimes I think about Jake. Wonder if he's changed. If prison is teaching him what it taught me. Or if he's just planning his next move. Finding new marks, new victims. I hope it's the former, but I prepare for the latter. Stay vigilant, because that's the thing about people like Jake. They're everywhere. In schools, workplaces, friendships, looking for weakness, for trust, for opportunity, and most of them never get caught, never face consequences. Just leave a trail of destroyed lives. Move on to the next target. But sometimes they do get caught. Sometimes the truth comes out. Sometimes justice actually happens. It's rare. It's hard. It takes everything you've got, but it's possible. It takes people willing to speak up, to support each other, to keep pushing even when it seems hopeless. That's why I'm sharing this story. Not for sympathy, not for revenge, but so maybe someone else will see the pattern, recognize the signs, stand up before it's too late, before years are lost, lives destroyed, futures stolen. And if you're reading this and you've been framed, set up, betrayed, know that you're not alone. That truth has a way of surfacing, that people will believe you, eventually, even if it takes years, even if it seems hopeless, even if the whole world seems against you. Document everything, find others, build your case, don't give up, because somewhere out there are people who will believe you, who will help, who will stand with you. You just have to keep going until you find them. The next few months were quiet, too quiet. Jake was serving his time and most of us were trying to move forward. I'd started seeing Kelly more regularly. We'd grab dinner after my night classes, nothing fancy, just takeout and conversation. They made me laugh, made me forget about everything for a while. Then Teresa called me one afternoon. Her voice was different, worried. She said Jake's cousin Wayne had been reaching out to people, asking questions about the case, about our evidence, about where we lived now. He'd even shown up at Judy's work, just stood outside, watching. I told her it was probably nothing, family being curious, but she wasn't convinced. Said Anthony had noticed someone following him home from work. Same car, 3 days in a row. We decided to be careful, stay alert, not panic, but not ignore it either. A week later, I got home to find my apartment door slightly open. Nothing missing, nothing moved, just open. Like someone wanted me to know they'd been there. I called the landlord. He said maintenance hadn't been by. No one had access. I changed the locks again, installed more cameras. Judy texted our group that night. Someone had called her job pretending to be a reference checker. Asked weird questions about her mental state, her reliability, if she had a history of lying. Her boss thought it was strange and let her know. The number was untraceable. We realized Jake might be orchestrating things from inside, using family, friends, people who still believed his version. Teresa started documenting everything again. We all did. The old paranoia creeping back, the looking over shoulders, the jumping at shadows. Then Diana found something interesting. Jake had been writing letters, lots of them. She knew someone who worked at the prison mailroom. They said Jake was corresponding with at least 12 people, all young guys, all in similar situations, all looking for guidance. We obtained copies of some letters through proper legal channels. Our lawyers filed requests citing ongoing harassment concerns. Jake was positioning himself as some kind of mentor, teaching people his methods, his strategies, how to identify marks, how to set them up, how to walk away clean. He was creating disciples, spreading his poison. I felt sick reading them. He wrote about us too, called us jealous losers, said we'd conspired against him, that he was the real victim. He was rewriting history, creating a narrative where he was the hero, where we were the villains. Teresa wanted to do something, stop him somehow. But our lawyer said writing letters wasn't illegal. Even teaching people to commit crimes was protected as free speech until they actually did something. We were stuck watching him build a network from behind bars. Then one of the recipients reached out to me. A kid named Arthur, 19 years old, said he'd been writing Jake for advice about dealing with bullies. Jake had told him to frame them for theft, get them expelled, ruin their lives before they could ruin his. Arthur was smart though, Googled Jake's name, found our website, read everything, realized he was being groomed, manipulated, turned into the next Jake. He sent me all their correspondence, wanted to help stop this. We added Arthur's letters to our collection, started reaching out to the other people Jake was writing, warning them, showing them the truth. Some listened, some didn't. Some were already too deep in his web. One of them, a guy named Joe, had already started using Jake's techniques, set up his roommate for substance possession, got him kicked out of college, bragged about it in his letters to Jake. We tried to help the roommate, but without proof, there was nothing to do. This was the problem. Jake had found a way to continue his damage from prison, creating mini versions of himself, teaching others to destroy lives. We'd stopped him, but not his influence, not his legacy of harm. I met with our lawyer lawyer again, asked if there was anything we could do. She said unless Jake explicitly instructed someone to commit a specific crime, it was just talk, just ideas, protected speech. The system that had failed us before was failing us again. But then Wayne made a mistake. He approached Anthony directly, offered him money to recant his testimony, said Jake could make his life easier inside if Anthony just said he'd lied, that we'd all lied, that we'd forced him to participate. Anthony recorded everything, Wayne admitting Jake had sent him, that there was a plan to discredit all of us, to get Jake's convictions overturned on appeal, to sue us for defamation, to destroy our lives all over again. We took the recording to prosecutors, witness tampering, obstruction of justice, conspiracy, real charges with real consequences. They arrested Wayne 2 days later. He folded immediately, gave up everything, including proof that Jake was directing operations from inside. The prison finally took action, moved Jake to solitary, restricted his communications, monitored his calls, cut off his ability to manipulate from inside. His network crumbled without his constant guidance. The letters stopped, the harassment ended, but the damage was done. Joe's roommate had dropped out. Another kid named Jonathan had been expelled after being framed. 2 more lives derailed. Jake's influence spreading like a virus even from behind bars. We decided to expand our website, add a section about recognizing manipulation, warning signs, red flags, resources for victims. Kelly helped with the design, made it user-friendly, easy to find on search engines. The site got thousands of visits, people sharing their own stories, not just about Jake, but about their own Jakes, the manipulators in their lives, the ones who'd set them up, used them, discarded them. It became a community, a support network. Local schools started inviting us to speak, share our story, teach kids about manipulation, about protecting themselves, about speaking up. Judy was amazing at it, turned her pain into purpose, helped kids recognize the patterns before they became victims. I was nervous the first time I spoke, standing in front of 100 high school students, telling them about the worst night of my life. But then I saw their faces, some nodding, some crying, some recognizing their own experiences. It mattered, it helped. One girl came up after, said her friend was doing similar things, setting people up, getting them in trouble, playing victim. She didn't know what to do. We talked for an hour, gave her resources, told her to document everything, to find others who'd been hurt, to speak up together. A month later, she emailed me. They'd exposed her friend, gotten them help, stopped the pattern before it destroyed more lives. She thanked me, said our story gave her courage, made her realize she wasn't crazy, wasn't alone. This became our new normal, speaking, teaching, preventing, taking our trauma and turning it into something useful, something that could stop others from going through what we did. It wasn't healing exactly, but it was purpose. Jake tried one more appeal, claimed ineffective counsel, said his lawyer hadn't properly defended him. The appeal was denied. The evidence was too overwhelming. His own words too damning. He was stuck serving his full sentence. No early release, no parole. I went to see him once. Don't know why. Curiosity, maybe. Closure. He looked smaller in prison orange. Older. The confidence gone. The swagger disappeared. Just another inmate now. Another number in the system. He tried to manipulate even then. Said he'd found religion. That he was changed. That he wanted to make amends. Apologize properly. I just stared at him. Said nothing. Let him talk. Watched him perform. Saw through every lie. When he finished, I stood up. Told him I forgave him. Not for his sake. For mine. Because carrying that anger was exhausting. Because I had better things to do with my energy. Because I'd won. I'd rebuilt. I'd survived. He looked shocked. Then angry. Then desperate. Started saying I owed him. That without him I'd never have become who I was. That he'd made me stronger. That I should be grateful. The same old manipulation. The same old games. I left without responding. Never went back. Never thought about him much after that. He'd taken enough of my time. My energy. My life. I was done giving him space in my head. Done letting him matter. The website kept growing. Became a resource. A warning system. People would post about potential manipulators. Others would confirm patterns. Share experiences. We'd accidentally created an early warning system. A network of survivors protecting future victims. Kelly and I moved in together. Small apartment but ours. Filled with plants they insisted on buying. Books I collected. Photos of good times. New memories replacing old trauma. Building something healthy. Something real. Teresa graduated law school. Passed the bar. Started working with wrongful conviction cases. Said she'd never forget what we went through. What Anthony suffered. She's helped free 3 people so far. 3 lives saved. 3 futures restored. Anthony's doing better too. Has his own place now. A steady job. Still goes to therapy but less often. He sent me a photo last week. Him and his girlfriend at the beach. Smiling. Free. Living the life that was almost stolen. Judy teaches full-time now. High school psychology. Uses her experience in every lesson. Teaching kids about healthy relationships. About red flags. About trusting their instincts. Her students love her. Call her real. Authentic. Someone who gets it. Diana's business is thriving. Hired 2 employees. Both people who'd been through similar experiences. Giving them chances others wouldn't. Building something positive from something negative. Creating opportunities where there were none. William works with at-risk youth. Counseling. Mentoring. Showing them better paths. He says seeing kids avoid Jake's influence makes everything worth it. Every sleepless night. Every moment of doubt. Every scar. Even Joyce stayed involved. The social worker who'd witnessed Jake's confession. She helped create a training program. Teaching social workers to recognize manipulation. To protect vulnerable kids. To stop patterns before they become tragedies. We still meet sometimes. Not as often.